morning, everybody. It's DaVinci Trucker, and today we're going to do a comparison between the new Rand McNally TND 750 and the Garmin OTR700. I've used the 700 for a month, and I bought the TND 750 just before, a week before I came home. Now, disclaimer, I bought both of these. I have no allegiance to either manufacturer, so I'm going to give you a review based on my opinion of using these both for the last while. Well, let's take a look first at the 740. Now, as you can see, if you own one, this is the main screen. Gives you truck tools, maps, and destination. Now, when I bring the 750 up, as you can see, if you compare the GUIs for both, they're pretty close to the same. I'm thinking this TND 750 or the Rand 2.0 so far is a UI upgrade. It's a nicer screen. Once we get into the mapping part, I'll show you a distinct difference between these two. Let's bring up. Now here's the mapping screen on the 740. Now if you wanted to know your directions, there'd be a bar up. Oh, sorry. There'd be a bar across the top here, and you just press that, and you would it would drop down and give you directions. Let's see if I can get it to do. Still searching for GPSs. If you notice, everything's down at the bottom. Now normally you get your drop down from up here, and then if you want anything, this just is save current, permanent roads, route settings from down here. Then if you want to add, let's go back. I haven't used this in so long, I'm not sure where the stuff is. If you want to add a truck stop as a stop and look up, you would go back to here, destination, travel centers, and then just pick what you're looking for. Now, on the I had plotted a route in yesterday, since that thing's still looking for GPSs. This is what the new screen looks like. Now, if you remember, this was down on the bottom corner. Now it's an all-in-one. You press it, you've got your route directions here. You want to add a stop, you can go right to your travel centers and add. So the interface is a little quicker to make adjustments on. And as you see, it's pretty responsive. The biggest thing I noticed between the both from the 740 to 750 is when they said that I think one of the things in the ad said it redraws quicker than that. It does. I mean, this is definitely a faster processor, got a little more RAM. And that in the week I used it, haven't had any issues, but most of the places I went they're pretty normal places. And that the one thing that doesn't work on either one, let me go back, is they both have this button where you can do fuel, weather, and traffic. I could never get the 740 to work, and I definitely can't get the 750 to work. It's just, it was intermittent on the 740, and on the 750 I had it connected up for a week, or at least 3 days, and it just never displayed anything. So I just got tired with it. Instead of putting the extra battery drain on my phone, I stopped the mobile hotspot, and I just don't use it. I didn't use it on the 740 because I never could get it to work. Because the biggest thing, the reason it doesn't work is it keeps dropping connection to the server. I mean, every time you check, you intermittently might get some weather, and then you check again, and then it says can't find server. Down here, that just changes how much of the screen you want to see. That gives you all your data. It'll tell you your ETA in what time zone, and it'll tell you local time and your yard time. It gives you elevation and all that. I mean, I'm not a real big person that checks all that, but I usually, the most important thing to me is having regular time and my arrival time. Another difference is, I'll take it off. This is the mounting. Now they beefed it up pretty good. If you take a look at the difference, it's what? There's a good ½ inch or more spacing apart. It's got 4 magnets. I don't have the bracket for the 740, but this thing used to, when you tried to turn it on and off, up the volume, and that, it would literally just fall off the bracket. This one, because of that heavy duty mount, it definitely stays on. I mean, as you can see, it takes, I'm having to pull pretty good to get it off. So it's on there secure. Another difference, if you've got the 740 and we're thinking of going up to the 750 and you bought the 7-inch visor that clips onto this, there's a distinct, now what's weird is the 740 is bigger, but for screen real estate, looks like they're about the same. Probably better if I turned it correctly. But the bezel and everything is way bigger on this. Now you'd think they would have put a bigger clamp on the back, but they didn't. That was one of the improvements they talked about in their ad spaces that they improved this mount. Now, the real difference, they look to be close to the same width, but they're really not. So that 7-inch visor that you bought for this will not work on this because of the curve of the GPS. Now it does have USB, micro USB. You think that by now, if you're going to redesign the GPS, that you would have done USB-C. Headphone jack, micro SD card. On the bottom of the mount, you have your auxiliary out, and then for your DC or your power connection. Basically the same thing that this one had, because micro USB was down here, micro USB was there. Like I said, I don't have the mount with me, so I can't determine what it had on it. Like I said, I haven't come across any issues in the sense of it hasn't found an address, but I haven't used it a lot. Now, the 740, this thing when I first bought it, almost took it back. I went into a city that the truck route it wanted you to take, every turn you made had construction, and so it had a detour. It was one of those small, you might only go a half block and then you had to make a turn. It got itself so confused, it just stopped routing. I had to go back in, hit it, so it would pick back up routing. This, haven't run into it yet. And I've been into a small town, I just haven't been in where the turns are so quick and then you're not following the route. I mean, just like my 740, when I use a GPS, I double check the route against the Rand McNally's paper atlas to make sure it's taking me on all truck routes. Obviously, at city level, you're not going to find that. Okay, next up, we're going to take a look at the Garmin's OTR700. Here is vehicle select screen. You put in all your information and hit select. There's the main screen. It's really, compared to even like the car ones, it's basically a Garmin screen. You got entering in your information and address, truck services, and save locations, and you got mobile service, tires, towing, parts and equipments, way stations. As you can tell, I don't normally do, this is my first foray into, let's see if I can get the angle without, a foray into doing a comparison video. We all got to do them. There's always a first time for everything, and this is my first time. Here is the map screen, or main mapping screen. It's detailed. Graphics are good. This one also redraws, recalculates quickly, routes quickly. If you want to get information, you can get on here. If I'm not mistaken on this one, let's program. I thought I had a program, a destination programmed in here. Let's go quickly. I'm going to calculate out a route so we can show you some of the information. All right, it'll give you all the information here. It tells you your travel time, how long it is, and then the first highway you're going to use. And then it'll disappear. Want direction? It's the same as the 740. As you touch the bar, you can read what directions. You can hit this to cities ahead, traffic, elevation, trip data, brake planner. You can also stop. You can edit your route. You can mute the voice. This is a lot more lightweight. I'll turn it sideways. As you can see, it's standard Garmin mount. It's thin, and an FYI, if you do have the 7-inch clamp-on visor, it fits on this one. It's screen to screen. It's similar to 740. I've been using it for the month I was using on this one, but you know, as much reflectivity as it's kind of got now in the sun, because I think it's because it's such a shorter mount, I usually don't have to use it. It's, you know, only certain times a day and that. But it's got your power cord mount, your micro SD card, and that's about it. This one doesn't have, by the way it looks, an auxiliary speaker port, and it confused me, but here's your power button. You just press it, hold it for a little bit, and then turn it off. It's kind of really light. You think you know, when you're holding it, it's like, oh, this thing's really cheap, but it's not. I mean, I'm hoping that if I get the same amount of time out of this one as I have out of my 740, my 720, my 710, this will be a good buy. Now here's the true comparison. Both are good GPSs so far. I've only had, in the month I've used it, the Garmin, I had 2 issues, but they weren't major. 2 issues I had in the Garmin was, one, it couldn't find an address. This shows you how old the information for streets are, at least in the Garmin, and the Garmin has way more streets on it than Rand McNally usually has. I don't know if the Rand 2 is also an update in the maps. That I can't tell you yet until I get more experience with it. The Garmin, streetwise, I haven't had any issues finding streets. Usually my issue comes in with addresses. So, but the one address issue, what it was is when I looked at Google, the address was showing a different address. When I looked up the place, even though if you went to their website, it showed the new address and that. Well, come to, when I used the address in Google, routed me, found the place, routed me right to it. I talked to the guy there and found out that at least 3 years ago, they were unincorporated. And I think 2 years prior, he said that the city incorporated them, which changed their address. So that tells you kind of how old that kind of address information is. If I go there again with the Rand McNally, we'll see if it picks it up, but it may not. I'll have to look at Google again, see what the old address is. Well, there was 3 little small issues. The second issue was, and it relates kind of to that address issue. I was typing in the name of a street and I couldn't find it. When I can't find a street, I always look at Google at the place I'm at and I see what the closest intersection is, and I'll plot in an intersection and I'll know that it's either before or after it. I'll just have to keep watching the numbers depending on how it brings me in. And I always use, since it didn't find that street, I always use the opposite street as the primary street. Well, when I did that, usually both of them will give you a list of streets that are usually intersect with it. Well, sure enough, the street I was looking for showed up, except that it was abbreviated. It was something Connector Road. And I was typing in the whole word connector. Well, they had abbreviated to CONN. As soon as I typed, went back, started from scratch, put the address, and then abbreviated the road, found it right, found that street, found routed me, and it routed me right to the door. Since I don't know how they're abbreviating, that's the only street I've come across, but I'm sure there's others. Try the intersection. If it says it can't find a street, if you happen to buy the OTR700 and it can't find a street, I'd even do it with Rand McNally. If you can't find the street, do an intersection and then see what the connecting streets are. I always compare it to 2 places. I compare it to Google Maps and to My Atlas. The third issue, small issue, and I run into it with Rand McNally, but believe me, that's why they say to make sure you pay attention to road signs. Real small town. The town wasn't even listed on the in Rand McNally's Atlas. I think theirs is anything under 500 people. The town isn't listed there. So we're talking really small town. Well, a lot of you know that in a lot of small towns, a business will form and then the town grows around it. So you usually do go through a residential section. Following the directions on here, it said make a right turn on this one street. When I got to the street, it was, if I'm not mistaken, they blocked off the end of the block with K-rail and had a big sign, no trucks going down there. So I had to go 2 streets up, I think, and then that didn't have a sign for no trucks, and luckily it didn't, because I wouldn't have known how to get into the place, because it was kind of really off into nowhere. There, one of those streets had to take you there one way or the other. But something like that, you're going to run into the same thing with Rand McNally, any other GPS. You know, that's why it's important. You know, double check your routes when you route. You know, it's an extra step. You think that technology is that great. It's not, because a lot of stuff's 3 years behind. Remember, it's a tool. Tools break. Tools are sometimes inaccurate. They're not perfect. So always double check. Now to get into which one would I recommend? Personally, I had a 760 Garmin, and that thing was screwed up from the start. So I never used it. Car-wise, I've always used the Garmin. It's always been really good. It personal preference. You know, Garmin was, the OTR700 was the first one that Lowe's put on sale. They haven't put Rand McNally on sale. Me personally, if I was just starting out in this industry, talk to guys, but I would go, so you don't spend a lot of money, I'd go with, if they got a 5-inch version of Rand McNally. If they got a T&D 550, I'm not sure. But I'd go with the 5-inch version. Check it, see if it, just to get used to using it, you know, entering in your information, and seeing how the truck GPS works. If you're, you know, been doing it a year, you're thinking, oh, you know what, I bought a, you know, a 5-inch, I want to go to a 7-inch. So far, I haven't had any problem with the Garmin for the month I used it, other than those 3 minor issues. It's actually routed me probably within 10 miles of the mileage I was getting paid for. The only thing, I hate to be bragging on Garmin, because I think it's actually going to turn out to be a good GPS, but their database is way behind. I haven't run into it yet with my Rand, but Pilot and Loves in Garmin are way outdated. You know, whenever you're gonna route and plan what truck stop to stop at, use Pilot and Love's app. Go along there. It's got some of the older ones, but doesn't have any of the newer ones in it. When you download the Garmin app, I know I've read some of the reviews. Some people can't get it to work. Mine worked fine. I have a S10 Note hooked right up. The only thing is, for some odd reason, the Garmin app, and I think it's the GPS more than it's my phone, because I don't have to restart my phone. It'll, you know, after a couple days, it'll like disconnect, and I have to, and I don't have to turn my phone on and off. I have to turn GPS on and off. So it must be something to do with the Bluetooth on the when it comes to the Garmin. I don't know if the software just gets locked in its state and you have to, you know, or from constant routing, it uses a lot of RAM, and to keep keep the GPS working, it drops the Bluetooth part. But yeah, I've got usually once a day, once every other day, I got to recycle the GPS. Now they're live traffic. You know, once you get your phone connected to the GPS, I'd say it's at least an 8. It'll usually tell you that there's a delay, maybe 23 miles up, and it's construction, and it's 5 or 10 minutes. It may say that until you're within 10 miles of it, and then all of a sudden it'll disappear. More than likely, whatever the construction was, traffic's now flowing through there pretty decently. Sometimes it'll automatically reroute you if it notices that there's a close. I had where it was showing like a half-hour delay due to construction, and I manually switched it to find an alternate route. It took me on all truck routes. Indiana just happens to have narrow truck routes in certain areas, but it was all truck routes. I didn't hit one street that said that I shouldn't be on there. The one thing I will say for both of them, and it's no different from one to the other, find a truck stop, it'll say it's 34 miles. Yeah, it ain't 34 miles once you plug it in. It's usually always 10 miles more. And random alley sometimes is even more. Well, that's about it. Again, only because Rand McNally is one I've used for a long time that I suggested buying a 5-inch version of that first. But if you want to try Garmin, I want to say they got a 5-inch version. It'll be less expensive, and you can get it to where you can try it and see how well it works for the type trucking you do. Whatever phone you have it connected to, it'll show you texts in from the regular, at least on the Android side. I imagine it probably works just as well for Apple, but Facebook Messenger and the regular app, it'll do it. The only thing is, just so you know, if you don't want to use that, I probably wouldn't use the Garmin as like a headset, because the speakers aren't that great. I imagine the mic ain't much better. You'd be better off with a headset. Use that. The only thing is, once you set the priority to being your headset, if you get out of the truck and you leave your headset in the truck, and obviously you're leaving your Garmin in there, and you get back in, they'll both connect, but the Garmin will want to take priority. And you can turn it to not do calls or audio, but whoever's calling will still show up on there. So text messages, calls, they all show up on there, so you don't have to really, depending on where you put your phone, it's a quick, downward glance, and you can see. So to me, that's pretty big. I will keep updating. If I get enough issues, what I'm going to do is, once I get back, because my truck's still in the shop, I'm going to use the Rand McNally for another month, and just so I can get a better, especially if the Rand McNally has all the same quirks as the 740 did, there's not much more I can tell you about that. I want to see how well Garmin does, see what its quirks are. So once I do 3 more weeks on the Rand McNally, I'm going to use the Garmin as my primary. And if there's not a whole lot of big quirks, I'll probably do a quick, quirks video just as an update to both these GPSs. Well, you have a good day. I hope this helps you in making a decision, and I hope I gave you enough information. Please leave a comment. I can't expand and improve without you leaving some kind of comment, whether I mean, try not to be too nasty about it, but, you know, give me some constructive criticism.